For the past year, I'd been hearing all the hype surrounding LABUBU dolls. Everywhere I went, and every video I saw, it seemed like everybody had one. Initially, I didn't quite understand what was so appealing about these creepy-looking rabbit things with gigantic overbites. Though once I looked into it, I found a whole entire LABUBU lore. On a basic level, there were the little keychain LABUBUs, simple common LABUBUs, and of course, the cheap knockoffs. But it went way deeper than that. People could customize and buy clothes for their LABUBUs, like outfits, accessories, as well as tiny little shoes. I even saw one person on Etsy selling LABUBUs with face tattoos. The only problem was that a lot of the LABUBU dolls were really expensive. The cheap ones didn't really feel special enough to be a birthday gift to myself. But the higher end ones were hundreds of dollars, and super rare collectors LABUBUs were going for thousands. I knew I wanted one, but I was too broke to get one. However, my friends had been listening to me raving about LABUBUs in the past weeks leading up to my birthday, so they pulled together some money and got me a really nice expensive one. They wouldn't tell me exactly how much it cost, but I knew it was up there. I was so excited to finally have a LABUBU doll. I hung it up in my rearview mirror. That way I would see it whenever I went anywhere. Unfortunately, ever since I put that LABUBU doll in my car, weird shit started happening to me. The first thing I noticed was how many people were staring into my car as I drove by. I chalked it up to them all being envious of my rare LABUBU, but all kinds of people were giving me the death glare. That wasn't all either. I considered myself a safe and somewhat lucky driver, but whenever I was on the highway, people kept drifting into my lane, forcing me to slam on the brakes or dangerously swerve out of the way. It got so bad that I became too paranoid to go anywhere except the places I absolutely had to. Of course, I still had to drive to work, and it was a harrowing experience every time, because I felt like I was dodging death every single mile. One day, I got to work, and felt a great deal of paranoia. I had been living in that state of panic for weeks ever since I got the LABUBU. At the end of my shift, I stepped outside to walk toward my car, when I suddenly felt horribly ill. The thought of getting back into a vehicle with that thing made me sick to my stomach. I didn't have a choice though. I was clocked out, and all I wanted to do was get home as soon as possible. That thing was staring at me as soon as I got in my car. I wanted to throw it out when I got home, and I think, somehow, it could sense that. As I drove, I couldn't stop thinking about it, seeing it out of the corner of my eye, never blinking, just smiling at me with those unnatural teeth. Forget being drowsy or texting while driving. The LABUBU was the most distracting thing I ever had to deal with while driving. The only way I could deal with my frustration was to talk to it.
What are you looking at, you little asshole? Stop trying to ruin my life. Just look away, damn it. You're not gonna convince me to keep you. When we get home, you're going in the trash. The outside one. You got that? Ah! Hey, what the hell? How are you doing that with your face?
Without warning, the LABUBU started moving on its own. It was rocking back and forth like crazy. I kept trying to hold it in place with one hand to keep it out of my face, but it was fighting me. I started to panic, almost losing control of my car. I was in the far left lane, speeding to get home, so there was nowhere for me to pull over. I nearly crashed trying to do it, but I made my way over to the right lane and took the first exit. With the LABUBU still thrashing under my mirror, I stopped and ripped it off. Then I opened the window and threw it outside.
There! Now stay gone, you little shit!
I was so distracted that I didn't realize I had stopped in the middle of an intersection. When I saw those lights about to hit me, my life flashed before my eyes. I thought I was dead, and all because of a damn LABUBU doll. Luckily, I survived, but I woke up in the hospital with just about every bone in my body broken, and the doctors telling me I'd been in a coma for weeks. They said it was a miracle I even made it. While I was recovering, I was stuck watching a lot of videos on TikTok. That's when I saw a video that made everything come flooding back. It was a video someone had taken of my car in broad daylight, only I wasn't in it. It was parked outside my apartment, and you could clearly see inside through the windows was my LABUBU doll, hanging from the rear view mirror, swaying back and forth with nobody touching it. Most people in the comments were saying it was fake, some kind of trick or AI generated garbage, but I know it's real. I saw it happen with my own eyes, and it nearly killed me. LABUBU dolls have recently taken the world by storm, with everyone wanting to own one. They are these plush toys that look like elves with exaggerated facial expressions, of which the central figure is LABUBU, a monster with sharp teeth, large ears, and a scruffy appearance. However, many have their conspiracies behind the dolls and claim that they are linked to demonic entities, like in a viral TikTok video posted by a user filming a parked car from a distance. In the footage, a LABUBU doll can be seen hanging on a rearview mirror of a vehicle, like how an air freshener would. However, it seems to move alone, swinging rapidly. What makes the clip eerie was how the user claims no one was in the car, which can be seen in the video. The video has since been posted on TikTok with the caption, "I've been saying LABUBUs are evil." It's difficult to fully know if the video is legit or not, but it's nonetheless unsettling as hell. When I was in college, I was engrossed in religious studies, which led me to being recruited by the local bishop to help build a new monastery. He ordained me, setting me upon my new path in life as a priest. Our monastery was quite small. Aside from me, the only permanent residents were 4 nuns. Things started out slowly, but as we gradually grew our congregation, we were blessed with our first addition, which was a woman who wanted to join us as our 5th nun. Her name was Mari, and she got along with the other nuns fairly quickly. After several years of nothing much happening, her presence was a welcome change. Tragically, this didn't last. It was only a matter of weeks before Mari started to act strange. She was rather young, so I thought she might act a little volatile at times, but her erratic behavior only worsened. She would laugh and giggle during Mass, disrupting the sacrament for no apparent reason. When the monastery was empty, she showed even more alarming traits. Her warm and talkative personality had disappeared, replaced by flat, one-word replies to anything we said to her. She refused to work or to read, and began whispering under her breath, saying all manner of ugly things which were quite unbecoming of her. One day, I saw her standing with her face buried in a corner, her shoulders rising and falling rapidly from an unstable way of breathing. Deeply concerned, I approached her saying,
"Marie, is everything all right? I'm quite worried about you." Marie? Marie? Talk to me, are you okay? Stop her! Holy shit! What the hell's wrong with you?
I was lucky to have the other nuns nearby to keep Mari from attacking me any further. Mari was not herself after that. Her sisters were able to get her to her bedchamber, where we locked the door from the outside until we could figure out what to do. It was nighttime, so we decided to see how things stood in the morning. Little did we know, the night was not done with us.
Hello? Who's there? Marie? What on earth? Hello? Is anyone there? It's nothing. It's nothing. I'm just gonna go back to bed. Ah! Marie, what are you doing? Get out of my bed. This is very sick behavior. Let me out of here!
Grab her!
What is happening?
Father, we need to perform an exorcism immediately.
A what?
Grab your Bible now!
Okay.
I'd never performed an exorcism before. Up until that moment, I thought it was all just myths and nightmares, but I was forced to realize that it was all very real. We first restrained her to my bed, and that's when I started reading the gospel. In an attempt to rip the demon from Mari's body, it was not enough. We had no choice but to resort to even more drastic measures, as Mari's true self slipped in and out of her body, begging us to
help me.
We dragged her from my bedchambers and chained her to the cross above the altar. We anointed her body with holy oil, repeating the scripture endlessly. We closed the monastery so I could focus solely on saving Marie. For 3 days, we kept her body hydrated with holy water as we worked to exorcise the demon. It seemed hopeless, but then, on the 3rd day, Marie's body finally ceased its thrashing and screaming. At last, she was calm. Concerned at that moment for her physical well-being after all she'd been through, we called her an ambulance. We thought she was safe after that, but somehow, in the hands of the doctors at the hospital, she died. Myself and the 4 nuns who performed the exorcism were held responsible and sentenced to prison. All the while, Marie's family still believes in us, as we know the truth. Marie was not some mentally ill woman we tortured without cause. She was possessed, and she needed us to save her. If only we'd kept her in our care instead of handing her over to the doctors, she could still be with us. This story was inspired by the downright disturbing exorcism known as the Tanasu exorcism, which was a case in which Maricia Irina Cornisi, an allegedly mentally ill nun at the Romanian Orthodox Church in Vaslui County, Romania, was ruled to be taken out during an exorcism in 2005, led by Father Daniel Petri Correginu and 4 Orthodox Christian nuns who were a part of the Order of the Holy Trinity. The case was widely publicized in Romanian media, and following a lengthy trial, the priest was sentenced on appeal to 7 years, 1 nun to 6 years, and the other 3 nuns to 5 years. However, many of the Tanasu's residents, including Cornisi's brother, believed her to have suffered from demonic possession. The coroner, Dan Gheorghiu, maintained that the nun's cause of death was due to an overdose of adrenaline given in the ambulance. My whole life, I've wanted a different body. I was always tired of being flat, especially on my backside. Everywhere I look, I see beautiful women with snatched waists and curves in all the right places, while I'm shaped like a stick. I'm always constantly taunted about how I could look. For the longest time, I've been interested in plastic surgery and other cosmetic operations to improve my body. Facelifts, chest enhancements, liposuction, and BBLs, just to name a few that I've looked into. As a teenager, I always dreamed of starting my transformation the day I turned 18, as my parents would never even let me talk to them about it. Sadly, becoming an adult just saddled me with work, bills, and stress, on top of getting in the way of the operation I wanted, which quickly started to make me look even worse with age. I knew plastic surgery was expensive, so I tried to save up money, but the crappy jobs I was able to get just weren't enough. I did the math and figured out I'd need to save up for 10 years just to get 1 operation, and by then, I'd be almost 30, so what would even be the point? I'd heard BBLs were rather affordable in Brazil, but traveling there was also way too expensive. With no other options, I turned to the local black market. I knew it was risky, but it seemed so prevalent in Miami that there had to be plenty of skilled doctors working under the table. It didn't take long to find a woman who said she'd performed hundreds of enhancements for cheap. She was still expensive in my opinion, but way cheaper than the legal prices, so I hit her up, over the phone. She was super friendly. She said she was running a special, almost like a Black Friday or Boxing Day sale for BBLs. I then made an appointment for the following week. On the day of, I arrived at the location in a not-so-good part of town. It was a little sketchy, but I knew that was part of the deal. That's when I was greeted by this middle-aged woman. She was unexpectedly thick, like she got a BBL done herself, but something looked completely off about it. I had no time to start second-guessing my decision, because the woman then led me down a narrow hallway, passing a few closed doors where I assumed all the BBL patients must have been in, then finally into my operation room. I was relieved to know that there was more than 1 illegal operation happening in there, and that I wasn't the only one. That's when the woman closed the door. I knew there was no turning back. I heard a voice in the back of my head telling me to leave, but I'd come so close to getting what I always wanted. and knew running off would be extremely rude. So I stayed and started talking to the woman, who I now assumed was my doctor. She had me change into a hospital gown, then directed me to lay down on the table in the center of the room. And before I knew it, it was happening.
What's that?
Oh, this? This'll just put you to sleep while I inject the stuff for your BBL.
Oh, really?
Yes! Now, you're going to feel a little pinch, but don't worry, you'll feel even better when you look in the mirror and realize you have a better BBL than Cardi, Drizzy, and every celebrity you can think of.
Ow! Okay.
Don't worry, your BBL will look like it's from Amazon and not Temu. I mean, just look at me.
Amazon? Temu?
Wakey, wakey!
What happened?
I made you hot. Want to see? Come on, get up slowly. I wouldn't want anything to leak.
No. This can't be real. What did you do to me?
I made you more like me. That's not a problem, is it?
You turned me into a monster!
Calm down. That's an easy fix.
As soon as I got out of that place, I went to the hospital to try and fix my horrible mistake. It took multiple surgeries to extract the things that horrible woman put in me. I couldn't believe it when they told me Fix-A-Flat, cement, mineral oil, and super glue. I felt like an abomination knowing all those things were in my body. It turned out that woman wasn't even a real doctor from the start. She was arrested, so she won't be able to destroy any more women's bodies. But for me, it feels too late. The scars left from what happened have ruined me. I used to just be ugly, but now I'm hideous. This story was inspired by a horrific incident regarding a woman who wanted someone who could perform plastic surgery at a cheap price to give her a curvier body. Police say what she found was a woman posing as a doctor who filled her buttocks with cement, mineral oil, super glue, and flat tire sealant. The suspect, who police say was born a man and identifies as a woman, apparently performed the surgery on herself, and investigations say she may have victimized others. The suspect in question is 30-year-old O'Neal Ron Morris, who was arrested and charged with practicing medicine without a license, with serious bodily injury. Police photos show Morris as a small-framed woman with bee-stung pouty lips, arched eyebrows, oversized tube earrings, and a large backside. She was released from jail on bond. Police say that Morris bounced from house to house for a year while performing illegal BBLs and staying out of investigators' sight like a ghost. The victim, who was not being named due to medical privacy laws, paid $700 for a series of injections in May 2010. She was referred to Morris by a friend. Morris injected some type of tube in several sites around her bottom, pumping it full of a toxic concoction. Morris reassured the woman when the pain became too intense, police said. Police said Morris told the woman, "Oh, don't worry, you'll be fine. We just keep injecting you with stuff and it all works itself out." Police said the victim was reluctant to come forward. She quickly went to 2 South Florida hospitals due to severe abdominal pain and infected sores on her buttocks, accompanied by flu-like symptoms. But she left each time, too embarrassed to tell the doctors what she'd done. Her mother eventually took her to a hospital, where alarmed doctors pressed her for information. They alerted the Department of Health. The doctors knew no licensed physician in his right mind would ever do this. The victim is still recovering from the surgery and says it's too painful to work. She also has racked up numerous medical bills. Authorities believe there are other victims who may be too embarrassed to come forward. Morris was readily introduced to our victim as someone who could help her improve her shape, so we believe she's done this to other people, police said. My cousin and I celebrated Mexican independence together last year. We went downtown where all the parties and stuff were happening, and honestly, I'd never seen anything quite like it. People were pouring into the streets, closing down the roads, and the whole city seemed like it was being affected one way or another. We took an Uber there, which turned out to be a very smart decision because the highways were jammed up. When we got to our destination, things were just as packed, but mostly with people instead of cars. The curbs were lined with food trucks serving birria, burritos, and all kinds of food. There were also plenty of drunks and party people as anticipated. I even saw a lot of older people celebrating too. Parents, aunts, uncles, like it was one big family event. With that kind of vibe in mind, I didn't expect much danger, but unfortunately, the element was around hiding in plain sight. I'm sure most people didn't even realize there were any gangs present at all, but my cousin and I just happened to be part of the unlucky few who ran into them. It wasn't me, to be clear. It was my older cousin who I saw talking up this girl at one point. I got curious about how it was going for him, so I made my way over to get close enough to hear them. That's when I heard my cousin ask for her number. She said something back about how she would, but she didn't want to do that to him. He was confused and kept saying it was alright, like he could handle whatever she threw at him, but she suddenly became very nervous, looking all around and shifting her weight. I thought my cousin had accidentally said something creepy, but then a large man approached them, already angry and backed up by several other dudes. He instantly got between my cousin and the girl, shoving him back into the wall. He kept shouting that the girl was his baby mama, and that's when I knew my cousin had seriously messed up. What made this situation 10 times worse than the fact that all those dudes were drunk as hell and looked hopped up on something. The way they were all formed up made it seem like they were in a gang, and the second that the idea came to me, I was sure of it. While I was watching what was going on, all wide-eyed and freaked out, one of the other guys in the group noticed me staring and started shouting at me. I didn't want to abandon my cousin in that situation, so I sheepishly made my way over to them, trying my best to communicate that I wasn't a threat. My cousin kept telling me to go away, but I just wanted to prove to those guys that he was alright and not some creep. However, I didn't even get a chance to say anything, because as soon as I was within arm's length of my cousin, one of the gang members grabbed me by my collar and tried to punch me. I broke free, and that's when me and my cousin got the hell out of there. It was too crowded to run, so we were speed walking through all the people, trying to get away so we wouldn't get jumped. We stayed together and kept going, eventually getting away from the crowd, ducking around corners and cutting through alleyways. We ended up going down one alley that turned out to be a dead end. We thought we'd lost those guys, so we didn't panic. We turned around to get out and rejoin the crowd, but then, just as we got to the exit, the entire group of dudes showed up and blocked us in. They kept pushing towards us, forcing us deeper back into the alley. We tried to reason with them one last time, but it was useless.
Hey, wait! If you guys want to beat me up, that's fine. But leave my little cousin out of this. He didn't do anything. Yeah, come on. Can't you guys just talk it out? Oh, you want to talk? Alright, let's talk.
We had our backs against the wall, with nowhere else to go. The man pushed towards my cousin. Then out of nowhere, he pulled out a knife. My cousin put his hands up to block it, but the man got right through and stabbed him.
Please don't kill me. I don't want to die. Please!
He collapsed immediately as I began screaming, begging for my life. The other men formed a wall, blocking me in. As the man with the knife came at me, I tried to stop him, but it happened so fast. The second he got me with the knife, it was like I had been electrocuted. My entire body went limp, and I couldn't breathe. Then the tsunami of pain consumed me. I could barely see through my own eyes as I tried to look up to tell if he was going to finish the job. Instead, what I saw was all of them running away. It looked like they had been scared off by something. Then, I noticed the people in the windows above me, people who lived in the building. It must have been them. The cops were called, and my cousin and I were taken to the hospital. Thankfully, we both lived to tell the tale, but not without the scars to go with it. The men who attacked us were never found, and now, we're scared to ever celebrate Mexican Independence Day ever again. As long as those select few violent psychos are out there to ruin the celebrations for everyone else, no one is safe. This story was inspired by a disturbing incident regarding two people who were stabbed in downtown Chicago, as crowds of people took to the streets to celebrate Mexican Independence Day overnight. Chicago police say two males suffered stab wounds after the two got into some sort of argument with a group of men. One of the victims was cut in the torso, while the other was stabbed in the back, police said. They were both taken to a hospital in good condition. The exact circumstances leading up to what happened were not immediately known. No one is in custody as police continue to investigate.
For a while, I kept seeing all these ladies posting up with the most unbelievable figures, having no idea how they managed to get that way. When I eventually heard they were all getting something called a BBL, I knew I had to get me one. Without leaving the country, the best place to get a BBL was apparently Miami. Nobody prepared me for how expensive it was, though. The lowest prices I saw from well-known surgeons were in the tens of thousands of dollars. I didn't have that kind of money, so I searched high and low for the best deal I could get. Eventually, I found a guy who was advertising BBLs out of his house. I wasn't too sure about it not being done in a legit doctor's office, but the price was hard to beat, so I took a chance on it. However, as the Uber I took from the airport dropped me off, I landed at a sketchy-ass house. That's when I kept having second thoughts.
Ah, man, this can't be right. Well, damn. I can't just be standing out here in the open. I better get inside for now. Here we go, I guess.
Are you here for the BBL?
Yeah, I was, but I'm not sure I want to go through with it.
But you're already here, aren't you?
I was, but I changed my mind. I was just wondering if I could just wait here till my ride comes back. This ain't the kind of neighborhood I want to look lost in.
You can come inside, but you must get the BBL.
No,
Come now, I'm the best in the business. When life gives you lemons, make lemonade. When life gives you a BBL, make the thighs match.
I'm not sure.
I can make narrow roads curvy, just like you. You know what? I'll cut you Black Friday discount since you've traveled so far to be here.
That's very generous of you. Okay. I'll do it, I suppose.
Smart choice, dear. Now, follow me.
This, is quite the place you've got here.
Those greedy plastic surgeons on the beach have the cops shutting us down all over the city. So we hide in plain sight. The filthier we look, the less people will think there could possibly be a clinic here. But I assure you, everything is quite sterile. Down where the magic happens. After you.
Alright.
This way, please. Lie down. Get comfortable.
Okay. Hey, what the hell is that? Hey, what the hell are you doing?
Relax. It's standard procedure.
No! Let me go! I don't want to do this anymore!
I said relax!
Hey, what is that? No! Please! You psycho! Put that damn thing down!
You just reminded me. I forgot the damn filling again.
The filling? What filling?
The filling for the BBL, darling. Did you think I was just going to convince your body to grow extra tissue? You're going to be made of plastic after I get back.
No! 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 Help! Somebody help me! Please! Help!
I'm back! Are you ready to be thick and no longer a stick?
No! Please!
My mind couldn't comprehend the nightmare. Everything just went black until I opened my eyes again. I was at home in my room, with my mother at my bedside. I couldn't see my body. The covers wouldn't let me. There was a bag of medicine pumping something into my body, but I don't know what.
All I know is that I could hear my mother begging for me to stay alive, telling me not to go, as it all faded away. This story was inspired by a horrific incident regarding a female named Monique Miller, 28, who passed away after getting cosmetic BBL surgery in Miami on March 6th. On March 5th, Monique Miller traveled to Miami to undergo cosmetic surgery. She passed away at an unlicensed surgical recovery house at 10:26 p.m. on March 7th, after allegedly being given unprescribed medication following the procedure earlier that day. The 28-year-old reportedly traveled with her sister, Kira Barnes, and the pair planned to get cosmetic procedures together at Ivana Plastic Surgery. Miller had a BBL, a procedure where fat is transferred from other areas of the body to the bottom, and liposuction. Miller then stayed with her sister at a recovery house following the procedure. Barnes later awoke to find her sister cold and still in the same position as when they fell asleep. On finding her unresponsive, they called 911. The police report adds that on arrival at the scene, which they identified as an illegal post-plastic surgery recovery home, police found the victim exhibiting signs of rigor mortis while heavily bandaged and lying face down on a bed. Miller leaves behind a 1-year-old daughter. It might be too soon for me to talk about this, even anonymously, but I need to get it off my chest. Recently, I was hanging with a few buddies of mine. The 3 of them aren't the best people, and they've definitely been a bad influence throughout my life. That evening, we talked about a ton of different things, but there was one topic I never expected the guys to even think about: dolls. Not just any dolls, but the LABUBU dolls that have been recently going viral. Nothing about them mattered to us, except for the fact that people wanted them, and because there was so much demand, prices were high. Eventually, the guys started coming up with a scheme and wanted to sell LABUBUs while they were still hot. I should have known where they were going with it, but I stupidly name-dropped a place I knew had a ton of LABUBUs, a local collector's store called One Stop. I was just trying to suggest that they could work there, maybe get commission for selling them, but my friends had another idea. All at once, they turned to me with an evil look in their eyes and wanted to rob and steal their stock of LABUBU dolls and sell them on the street. They would be loaded by the end of the week if they could pull it off. As soon as I realized what they were really talking about, I tried to back out. I didn't want anything to do with it, but by then, it was already too late. Guys, I don't want to rob anybody. That's like a family-owned business, man. Look, it's happening, shithead. There's no backing out. You're either in or we're jumping you. What? Are you in or not? I'm sure you're used to hearing that from every girl you slept with. Sure, I'm in. It was either I helped them rob the store or let all 3 of them kick my ass right to the ICU. So I chose option A. That same night, we put the plan together. We already had the tools we needed. Gloves, masks, crowbars, and bags. It even just so happened that one of my friends had stolen a pickup truck a few days ago. He kept it in his garage, which would make the perfect getaway vehicle. Since he'd already taken care of that, he'd stay outside and make the getaway, while the rest of us went in. By the time everything was set to go, we stayed at my friend's house until it got late. When night fell, we transferred over to the getaway driver spot, then piled into the stolen truck and made our way to One Stop. When we got there, we put on our masks, made sure our sleeves were down and our hoods were up. As soon as the truck stopped, the 3 of us got out and ran to the door. Within seconds, we broke the padlock and pried the door out, and just like that, we were in. We all started grabbing all the LABUBUs that we could. We smashed open the cases and went behind the counter for the most expensive ones and completely cleared the shelves. Suddenly, it was over. There weren't any LABUBUs left to grab, and we were carrying as much as we could possibly hold. A distant siren caught my attention right as we were leaving. I couldn't know for certain if they were coming for us, but I was pretty damn sure that they were. We loaded up the truck and piled in. Then the getaway driver got us the hell out of there. Once we were off the block, we took our masks off to avoid looking suspicious, and I swear, literally seconds later, the first cops went speeding by us, right back to one stop. If we'd stayed there just a minute longer, it would have been over. Still, we weren't home free until we were back in the garage. And, of course, that had to be one of the nights that we stopped at a red light and a cop pulled up right next to us. We were all shitting ourselves there for about 30 seconds, but thankfully, when the light turned green, he went the other way and drove off. Back at the house, we celebrated when we knew the coast was finally clear. I felt more relieved than I ever had in my life, and everyone was thrilled with the amount of LABUBUs we were able to snatch. We couldn't even imagine how much money we were going to make off them. However, the very next day, the anxiety came back in full force. What we'd done had already broken the local news, and it was starting to go viral. They had crystal clear video of us robbing the store, but we hadn't been identified yet. We had been careful enough to avoid that. Despite all of us trying to stay low-key, the getaway driver got spooked and dumped the truck. The cops ended up finding it, which led them to our friend's house, where we had stashed all the LABUBUs. Someone in the neighborhood must have seen us unloading stuff and got suspicious, even though we kept everything covered. In the end, all the LABUBUs got seized and given back to One Stop, and my friend got arrested, so it was all for nothing. Myself and the other two guys are still laying low, but I'm constantly scared the one who didn't get away is going to snitch. If he does, we're all getting caught too. This story was inspired by a viral LABUBU robbery that was caught on camera. Police are investigating a warehouse robbery where thousands of dollars worth of LABUBUs. When serving a search warrant to a resident in nearby Upland, the detectives recovered 14 boxes of LABUBUs valued at around $30,000. Evidence shows that the stolen LABUBUs located in Southern California were being prepared for resale, according to the police department. The LABUBUs have since been returned to their rightful owners. The LABUBUs were stolen from a warehouse over several days, according to police. During the investigation, when police served the search warrant, a suspect attempted to flee the scene but surrendered. Police did not identify the suspects in their press release. The recovery came after another location, One Stop Sales, a store in La Puente, California, shared footage of thieves stealing around $7,000 worth of LABUBUs from the store. The vehicle used in the crime was a stolen Toyota Tacoma, which was recovered shortly afterward.
My wife was always insecure about her figure. It only got worse as she got older and became more regular on social media. Over the years, she's gone through different phases on how she wanted to look. Around the time we got married, she wanted to be skinny. However, these days, she wants to be thick and voluptuous, like the woman she sees on social media. Being her husband, I always considered it my responsibility to help her realize that she doesn't need to look like all these other women to be beautiful. Either I'm terrible at finding the right words to convince her, or she's never going to change her mind, because it has never once worked. My wife is obsessed with her appearance and constantly compares herself to the most unrealistic standards. No matter what she does, how much she exercises, how much or how little she eats, nothing is ever good enough. She is never satisfied. With how consumed she is by this pursuit of the ultimate beauty, I felt sidelined, and it has put a terrible strain on our marriage, resulting in frequent fights.
Babe, what are you doing?
Leave me alone.
What's the matter? Is there something I can do for you?
No, because it's something you can't afford.
What is it? What exactly do you need?
I need a BBL.
What?
I said I need a BBL, and if you don't pay for it, I'm divorcing you.
Once she gave me the ultimatum, I either had to pay for her BBL, or she was going to take half of everything I owned. That's when I researched for a doctor that specialized in that, and found someone. He was this guy who had a huge following on Instagram, just from doing BBLs. I was skeptical, but he seemed legit, so I put him in contact with my wife so they could make an appointment. About a week later, my wife gave me the address, and I drove her out to the operation. I was confused, and I mean completely baffled when I pulled up to the location. Instead of a hospital or a clinic, it was a random apartment building. I then lost my shit. The whole thing was just sketchy as hell. There was no way I was going to let my wife go through with this, but then she reminded me that she would leave if I didn't get it done, so I let her. I was in complete awe. I just stayed in the car as she went in by herself to get the BBL. I had absolutely no idea how long it would take. An hour, 3 hours, 30 minutes? I didn't know. So I just sat there on my phone trying to pass the time. My anger faded away. Then boredom and impatience set in. Hours passed, and there was no word. I texted my wife and the doctor, but no reply. I called them both multiple times, but no answer. As it started to get dark out, I had a sinking feeling in my stomach that something was wrong. There was no way it was supposed to take this long, so I finally decided to go into the building. I entered a maze of hallways, walking around aimlessly, until I realized my wife had never given me the apartment number, so she could have been anywhere. I started to panic. Was she cheating on me? Was this guy trying to kidnap her? I ran down hallway after hallway. All I could feel was panic and hopelessness, when all of a sudden, I heard shouting. I couldn't understand any of it, but it sounded like my wife, so I ran toward it. That's when I rounded a corner and saw the most horrific sight of my life. It was my wife, with a gigantic botched BBL stumbling incoherently down the hall.
Ah! What the hell happened to you?
Help me, please.
I helped my wife out of the building, crammed her into the car, then I rushed her to the hospital. I could tell she was in agony. She was groaning from the discomfort for what had been done to her. When we finally made it to the hospital, the staff all had this placid look of horror on their faces, like they'd seen this 100 times, but it never got easier. They told me she wasn't likely to survive, and that made my stomach drop even further. I hadn't even considered that it might kill her. They took her into the operating room and left me out there to wait, biting off my nails until they bled, not knowing if I'd sent my wife to her death. It took even longer to remove all the implanted material than it took to put it in there to begin with, so I was there for hours. Thankfully, she did manage to survive. They had pulled and sucked out kilogram after kilogram of silicone and acrylic material. My wife was still unconscious for a while, recovering from severe trauma, and in that time, I spoke to the police. I told them everything I knew, but the man I then discovered to be a full-blown black market doctor had already gone missing. It took 5 days for them to find him, but he was eventually brought down. Since then, my wife and I have been trying to recover from this incident with intense therapy. It's hard enough for me, so I can't imagine what she's going through. This story was inspired by a horrific incident regarding a Brazilian plastic surgeon known as Dr. Bum Bum, who was arrested after a patient undergoing a procedure on her backside passed away. Dr. Bum Bum, whose real name is Dennis Cesar Barrios Furtado, enjoys a huge fan base on social media in Brazil. He was arrested by police in Rio de Janeiro on Thursday after 5 days on the run. Police say the exact cause of death of the patient, identified as 46-year-old manager Lilian Calexto, has not been determined. She reportedly felt ill while Furtado was giving injections into her bottom. Furtado then rushed her to the hospital, but he then disappeared, according to authorities. It was alleged that Calixto arrived at the hospital with tachycardia, an abnormally fast heart rate after having silicone injected into her bottom. The procedure is also believed to involve the injection of acrylic glass filler. Following his arrest, Furtado, 45, proclaimed his innocence to reporters, saying there was an occurrence with the patients. After his arrest on Thursday, Furtado said on his Instagram that the woman's death was an accident and that he had performed 9,000 such procedures, which are legal in Brazil. In an interview, the president of Regional Medical Council of the state of Rio de Janeiro said, "You cannot perform plastic surgery inside an apartment. Many people are selling a dream, a fantasy to patients in an unethical way, and people, weakened, are often attracted to low prices without considering whether or not the conditions are adequate." When I was younger, I always used to collect plushies and soft little dolls, and as I got older, I still carry those same traits. Since I live alone, I like to decorate them around my apartment to populate the space. That way I don't feel so lonely. Naturally, when the LABUBU craze came around, I fell victim to the hype. I went down the rabbit hole and saw so many LABUBU videos that I was learning the lore behind all the different members of the LABUBU tribe. I did hear some rumors about them as well, but I've never believed in any of that. To be honest though, I felt kind of obligated to get a LABUBU more than I actually wanted to have one. I didn't want to miss out, and I figured they might grow on me, so I ended up getting one. Unfortunately, as soon as I unboxed my LABUBU, something didn't feel right. It might sound weird, but I ascribed my dolls and plushies vibes and feelings. Whatever it was, I couldn't see. The new LABUBU was making them very uncomfortable, like they didn't want to be around her. To make everyone happy, I put everybody but LABUBU and my chillest plushie in the living room, then the rest stayed in my bedroom. I thought that sometimes dolls can be like cats and need time to acclimate to each other, so I hoped things would resolve themselves after a few days. Of course, I wouldn't bother saying anything of this if that were the truth. No matter how I arranged everybody, there was an undeniable tension. It wasn't just them feeling it anymore either. It was affecting me too. I lost sleep and had this nagging feeling that I wasn't the only person in my apartment. I worried if I told my friends what was happening, that they would think I was making it all up, so I kept it to myself. But things only got worse. For the first time in my life, I started hearing things, like things I knew couldn't be real, but felt real nonetheless. I'd be in bed and hear things falling in the kitchen, only to get up and find nothing out of place. Sometimes, while relaxing on the couch, my bedroom would make a noise. I don't know if that makes any sense, but it was like someone was walking around in there, depressing the floorboards, quietly messing with my sheets. Every time I checked, there was nothing, nobody. Beyond that, if I didn't already think I was going crazy, LABUBU seemingly started to move around on her own. Now, I'll be the first to admit that I'm not the best with keeping track of things, but my dolls are a bit more than things to me, almost like pets or even friends, so I tend to have a good memory of where I last put them. LABUBU, however, was elusive. I could have sworn I finally let her sit on my bed, only for her to randomly show up on the coffee table later the same day. I tried locking her up in the kitchen cabinet, just for her to escape and surprise me on the floor. It was maddening, and nothing seemed to make it stop. One night, things got out of control. After tossing and turning for hours trying to fall asleep, I was just getting there when I suddenly shot awake. Something had pulled me out of sleep like my life depended on it, and then my eyes started to work again, only to see what was in front of me. Despite the fact I live alone, there was a large dark shadow looming over my bed.
911, what's your emergency?
Hello? Police? There's someone in my bedroom. I don't know who, but...
You know me.
What? No. Who are you? Who's there? What are you doing here? Get out!
But you brought me here. Don't you want to be best friends?
No, go away! You aren't real. This is a nightmare.
You think this is a nightmare?
Just leave me alone!
This is a nightmare.
I went into LABUBU's mouth, then I suddenly woke up. I was sweating bricks. I knew it was real this time, because my body was covered in scratches and bruises. Everything hurt. That's when I found LABUBU hanging around, and threw her in the trash. I tied the bag up, then took it out to the dumpster. Ever since then, I've been free of LABUBU's curse, though not without frequent reminders. The fact that they are demonic is some sort of meme now, but from what I experienced, it's absolutely true. Of course, whenever I tell my story, everyone thinks I'm making it up. To all those people who don't believe me, I wish they'd get a LABUBU doll of their own and see what happens. This story was inspired by a series of eerie TikToks of people claiming to experience cuts or bruises after owning a LABUBU doll. Some claim to even hear their LABUBU whispering at night. After digging deeper down the LABUBU lore, There have been dozens of videos alluding that Labubus have an uncanny resemblance to Pazuzu, a notorious demon from Mesopotamian myth. Historically, he's been associated with storms and drought, but ironically symbolizes protection amidst chaos. Nevertheless, TikTok began to swirl with tales of Labubu hauntings. One story which emerged is that the stuffing used to make the first batch of Labubu dolls was housed in the same warehouse in Iraq, used to store archaeological artifacts such as Pazuzu idols. The story goes that dust from a shattered idol ended up in the burlap sack that contained the Labubu stuffing. At the end of it all, these are really just superstitions, and we don't know for certain if the injuries people claim to have are Labubu related. I live in Mexico City, and every year, we celebrate Independence Day with a huge festival in Plaza Garibaldi, near the center of town. I hadn't been to the plaza in years though, as it had started to become overrun with tourists. It wasn't until I was looking for a place to take my girlfriend that I wanted to go back. It was our first time celebrating Independence Day together, so I wanted it to be memorable. One major thing I had forgotten about the plaza was just how prevalent the mariachi scene was on Independence Day. My girlfriend and I were wearing the colors, but other than that, we were basically in regular clothes. It seemed like everyone else was dressed up in some kind of traditional outfit, and more than half of the people there were dressed like maricheros. However, it wasn't like we weren't having fun. We waved the Mexican flag with hundreds, even thousands of people, cheering and dancing the mariachi music that was ringing out from every direction. There was delicious food to be found everywhere, but it felt like we might get lost among the sea of giant sombrero charros, those big fancy mariachi hats. Sometime close to sunset, I started to get overwhelmed. I remember trying to pull my girlfriend away from the crowd since there were a lot of drunks, ropers, and people that were too close for comfort. I struggled to find somewhere spacious though, and it was like we were just going in circles. Eventually, I bumped into this tall, angry guy wearing the full mariachi getup. He had the instrument case for a guitar too. As soon as I made eye contact, he started cussing me out.
Hey, Holmes, watch where you're walking, fool!
I didn't want to look like a wimp in front of my girlfriend, but I was seriously scared of this guy. He was bigger, and looked like he had been in a lot of fights before from the way he looked. At first, I tried to apologize for running into him, but I could tell he wasn't trying to listen to what I was saying. Out of nowhere, he shoved me, almost tripping me off balance. Just when I thought that guy was going to bash my skull in, two more guys dressed like mariachis came up and held him back. They were both carrying cases too, so they must have been in a band together. It still didn't look like they were going to convince him to not beat me senseless if I stuck around. So I caught my breath, scrambled to my feet. Then my girlfriend and I got the hell out of there while we had the chance. Honestly, I was distraught. It was such a humiliating moment. My girlfriend asked me if I wanted to go home, but as much as I felt like leaving, I didn't want to ruin the day for her. I wanted us to experience the rest of the night together, so I swallowed my shame and told her we were staying. Not long after that, we heard a sudden swell of mariachi music. It was being played all over the plaza, but somewhere nearby, an especially loud and skillful band was pumping out some serious sound. The crowd around them started cheering, and I wanted to find out what it was all about. We joined the audience, slowly worming our way to the front, but when we could see the players, my heart sank. It was the same three guys, and the guy in the middle was the one who assaulted me. He instantly found my face in the crowd and stared at me with a look of death and hatred, wrapped up in a fake festive smile.
Ah, shit! It's them!
Are you sure you still want to stay?
Screw this. Let's just get out of here. Alright, amigos! Happy Mexican Independence Day! I hope you enjoyed the show, but now it's time to take out one puta and grind him up like the meat in a burrito. You! What the hell? Holy shit, holy shit. Oh, okay, let's get out of here, now! Wait, babe, where are you? No!
By the time I stopped and looked around, the band was already finished, and they were speeding off on motorcycles. This whole time, I'd been running for my life, thinking my girlfriend was right by my side, but she wasn't. I started to run back, the only one racing in the opposite direction of everyone else. When I finally came out on the other side of the crowd, I was surrounded by an empty plaza, looking at a pile of dozens of bodies lying on the ground in a pool of blood, still seeping towards my feet. And there, right where I'd left her, my girlfriend was among them. I'd left her to die. She and 3 other people were taken out that day, and many more were injured. If I could go back in time, I would have thrown myself in front of her instead of running like a coward. But it doesn't matter. The men responsible were never caught, and every year, on Independence Day, I relived this tragedy over and over again. This story was inspired by a deadly incident that happened on Mexican Independence Day. Allegedly, 3 men dressed as mariachi musicians opened fire during the Independence Day celebrations in Mexico City, taking out 4 people. The ordeal happened at Plaza Garibaldi, an iconic square in the capital where mariachi bands serenade tourists. 9 people were wounded in the attack, including at least 1 foreigner. Surveillance video showed the 3 men, wearing traditional embroidered jackets and pants, fleeing on motorcycles. The prosecutor's office said investigators were trying to find those responsible for the attack, but few crimes in Mexico are solved. A Mexican security expert said that the ordeal appeared to be a hit by an organized crime group, and the suspects more than likely targeted a specific restaurant on the plaza, in what may have been a shakedown for protection money or a hit on rivals. My daughter Clara was always a little different from other girls her age. She was very quiet and didn't have many friends. Most kids she brought over only came over once or twice before she said they didn't want to be friends with her anymore. And she never got invited to anyone else's home. She didn't want to watch TV or listen to the radio like her peers. She only liked to read. I was too busy to ever pay close attention to what she was reading, but I wish I had. When Clara was a teenager, her behavior became even stranger. She became more gone and didn't seem to be interested in much of anything. Even her reading habits changed. Instead of having a different book in her hand every time I checked on her, there was only one, an old leather-bound Bible. Honestly, I thought it was good for her. While most of my friends were worried about their teenage daughters getting pregnant or running away, I was proud to say that my daughter was well-behaved and a devout Christian. Those were the good old days, before everything fell apart. It started one night when I was having trouble sleeping, and then I noticed Clara was standing in my room. The lights were off, but I could see her in the doorway. She wasn't moving at all. I called her name quietly, asking what she was doing. When she didn't respond, I spoke louder, but it still didn't faze her. I got up out of bed and walked over to her, trying to figure out what was going on. Now standing right in front of her, I turned on the lights without warning and told her to go back to her room because it was past her bedtime. After that, I was sure she had been sleepwalking, but this was not a one-time event. Every night after that, I would wake up or open my eyes to see her standing in my doorway, staring at me in the darkness while I was trying to sleep. I never once noticed her walking to my room though. It was like she just teleported there. For the first week or so, I got up and turned the lights on to get her to wake up and go back to bed. But eventually, I got used to it and let her stay there. I knew it was creepy as hell, but I just didn't feel like getting out of bed every night. Then, things took a much more drastic turn for the worst. One night, I was in a deep sleep as usual. I remember tossing and turning on my bed, trying to find a comfortable position to settle in. I couldn't tell if Clara was in the doorway or not, but I assumed she was, like how she'd been for almost a month. I then shot up from my bed, only to realize I was alone. However, my door was wide open. That's when I got out of bed and started making my way down the dark hallway towards her room. When I opened her door, I remember seeing her levitating above her bed. She was at least 4 feet in the air. She then got up on the ceiling, not hanging or climbing, but like gravity had reversed for her. She then started crawling on her hands and knees in random circles. I left her room and immediately called our church. I rang and rang until the priest finally woke up and answered, and he urged me to bring her to the church immediately. By this point, Clara was a shell. She'd found her way off the ceiling, but now, no matter what I did, I couldn't get her out of that dormant state. I had to drive and carry her all the way to the church, where they used holy water to briefly wake her up. One of the priests took her into the confession booth to ask her what had made her this way. She admitted that she had been practicing satanic rituals and conjuring spirits. She learned it all from the book she had been reading, the one I thought was a Bible. Turns out, that was just a false cover, and the rest was filled with the words and will of Satan. Soon after, she fell back into her empty state, and the priest confirmed my worst nightmare, that my daughter had been possessed. They performed an exorcism right away, and what followed is one of the most traumatic things I have ever witnessed.
Hear me, foul spirit! The power of Christ compels you to release your fiendish grip on this innocent soul!
I'll grip your throat and penetrate your skull!
The power of Christ compels you! Get her off me! Get her off!
Clara, stop!
Quit screaming, you bitch! Your daughter's already a whore in hell!
It went on the same way for hours. The demon and Clara fought against the priests all night, nearly killing them several times. In the end, however, they successfully finished the exorcism, freeing my daughter from Satan's grasp. I wish I could say things were normal after that, but the time she spent under Satan's control took a terrible toll on her body. Her heart could not keep going. She died not long after. Every single day, I wish I had watched Clara more closely and taken her to get help so much sooner than I did. Maybe then, she never would have been possessed in the first place. Maybe she'd still be alive. This story was inspired by a disturbing incident regarding a female named Clara Germana Seely, who was a South African Christian woman in 1906, who was said to be possessed by a demon. It was believed that she had been possessed when she was a 16-year-old schoolgirl at St. Michael's Mission in Natal, South Africa. The girl was an orphan of African origin and was baptized as an infant. At the age of 16, the girl made a pact with Satan, and this is said to be the cause of her demonic possession. Clara later revealed this information to her confessor, Father Horner Erasmus. In an account written by a nun, Clara was said to be able to speak languages of which she had no previous knowledge. This fact was also witnessed by others, who recorded that she understood Polish, German, French, Norwegian, and all other languages. The nun reported that Clara demonstrated clairvoyance by revealing the most intimate secrets and transgressions of people with whom she had no contact. Moreover, Clara could not bear the presence of blessed objects and seemed imbued with extraordinary strength and ferocity, often hurling nuns about the convent room and beating them up. The nun reported that the girl's cries had a savage bestiality that astonished those around her. The girl, according to some, was said to have levitated 5 feet in the air, sometimes vertically and sometimes horizontally. And when sprinkled with holy water, the girl is reported to have come out of this state of her satanic possession. According to a Lutheran pastoral handbook, one possessing these symptoms is an indication that the individual is truly possessed, rather than suffering from a mental illness. Consequently, 2 Roman Catholic priests, Reverend Mansuetti and Reverend Erasmus, were appointed to perform an exorcism on Clara. This deliverance lasted for 2 days. At the end of the exorcism, it was said that the demon was forced out and the girl was healed. I went out with a group of my friends for Mexican Independence Day. We live in Chicago, so we didn't expect there to be a major celebration for it, but we were pleasantly surprised to hear there was a huge gathering in the streets around the South Loop. There were 4 of us, one guy driving, another guy in the passenger seat helping him find his way through the crowds, then me and my buddy Chris in the back seat. We were pre-drunk from a bottle of tequila, and even though it's technically illegal, we took the open bottle with us so we could keep drinking once we got there. We expected that being the guys with the bottle would attract a lot of friends, and it absolutely did. Chicks were coming up to us, asking for shots, shaking ass for it, and dudes were more than happy to trade hits of their joints for a sip. It was a blast. Mexican flags were flying everywhere, and we took over the streets like the cops couldn't even touch us. We didn't want it to end. We even opened a second secret bottle of tequila just to keep it going. Of course, nothing can last forever. We were all stumbling around and slurring our words as we finished the second bottle. Even our designated driver was hammered. However, the celebration was still going strong, so it was difficult to get out of the crowd and find our way back to the car. We eventually did, and our driver wanted nothing to do with driving since he didn't want to run the risk of getting into trouble, but we peer pressured him into doing so. Man, I wish we'd waited just a bit longer, or maybe just gotten an Uber, because as soon as the car started moving, the problem started. We were sandwiched between two trucks that were way taller than my friend's car, so we were totally blind backing out of there. All he could do was try to go as slowly as possible, so that whoever was coming would have plenty of time to react. We thought that was the nice thing to do, but apparently other people disagreed. Just as I thought we were in the clear, we heard a huge thud from the back of the car. We all freaked out, thinking we'd just hit somebody, but we quickly found out that wasn't the case. Yes, some people were walking behind the car, but they hadn't even gotten hit. We just got a little too close for their comfort, so they smacked the car with their hand. It wasn't just a warning though. It was the beginning of a huge confrontation. As our driver slammed on the brakes, Chris got out to talk to the guy. If he'd been sober, he would have known that was a bad idea. But we were all shit-faced. Chris and the guy started shouting at each other immediately, so I got out to help him. My blood ran cold when I saw the guys Chris was up against. There were 3 of them, which meant we technically outnumbered them with our whole group. But these guys were hard, like real mean sons of bitches. They all had these tattoos and matching bandanas, so I knew they were in a gang. But this didn't seem to register for Chris. He was stepping to them like he would do to any random punk. I tried to get his attention and tell him to back off, but when I grabbed his shoulder, he basically just dragged me right into his boat. He kept saying,
This is my homeboy! He's gonna F you up!
The whole time, I was trying to shake my head, like hell no. But it seemed like those gangbangers were drunk and high too, so they didn't even care. The more I tried to defuse things, the tenser it got. Suddenly, the main guy in the middle, the one who smacked our car in the first place, started accusing Chris of being in a gang, and worst of all, the rival gang to his own. It just so happened that this was the moment that our other 2 friends decided to get out of the car. I know they were trying to help, but their presence only set the gangbangers off, making them think we were in a gang and about to brawl. What happened next is ingrained in my memory.
What's up? You're a disciple, aren't you? Nah, man, I ain't no gang, but I'm still gonna kick your ass for touching my homeboy's car. Chris, come on, cut it out already. Hey, who's that? Wait, it's not what you think. No, no, no!
Just like that, Chris was gone in an instant. Before anybody could even react, he crumpled to the ground, and the life ripped out of his body like God had simply flipped a switch. I didn't even know that guy was armed. It should have been obvious, but nobody was thinking clearly that night. After Chris died, the rest of them left, not running or freaking out, but calmly walking away like what they had done was totally normal. We all froze in shock. Nobody could even go after them, because we had to check on Chris. We all knew he was dead, but we just didn't want to accept it. We kept shaking him and shouting his name, hoping he would wake up. We even called an ambulance, but the paramedics took one look and told us they were taking him to the morgue, not even the hospital. Nothing has been the same without Chris. Every night, I play that scenario back in my head, thinking of everything I could have done to make it end differently. It doesn't matter what I do. It always ends the same way, with Chris gone forever. This story was inspired by a disturbing incident regarding a man who was accused of taking out another man on a grocery store parking lot during Mexican Independence Day celebrations in 2021. He was sentenced to 45 years in prison. Cell phone video of the incident quickly went viral. Martin Torres, 31, was convicted of 2 counts of murder during a jury trial. Judge Timothy Joyce handed Torres 20 years, plus a 25-year sentencing enhancement for using a firearm during the crime, according to court records. On September 16, 2021, Christopher Torrijos and a group of his friends headed to the South Loop to participate in the increasingly popular street gatherings that celebrate Mexican Independence Day. They ended up at the Jewel Osco parking lot, which was teeming with revelers. At the end of the evening, as a group of drivers backed out of a parking space, Torres's brother became upset because the vehicle was reversing near him. Torres's brother yelled and banged on the car and started arguing with the members of the group, including Torrijos. Prosecutors said Torres' brother shoved Torrijos and claimed to be a Satan disciple, while Torrijos repeatedly exclaimed that he was a neutron, meaning he wasn't a gang member. A fight broke out, and at least 2 cameras recorded the incident. As the two struggled, Torres, who was armed, took the victim out. Police officers who work in Little Village identified Torres almost immediately from the video, but it took authorities nearly a year to find him. Torres' private defense attorney argued that Torres was acting in defense of his brother. I've been a nun for many years now. I live and work with all my sisters in the convent. We eat our meals together, work together, and even sleep in the same large room together. We pray as one as well. When there are chores to do, they are always done in pairs. The only time we get time to ourselves is when we are tending to the private needs of our personal hygiene. And even then, a sister is never much farther away than the other side of the door. There is only one man who also lives in the church, our priest, Father Urban. Since there are currently no other priests or seminarians learning under him, he is often by himself. We are of course not permitted in his chamber, therefore we have little reason to disturb him while he is working. For years, our lives were simple, faithful, full of structure and grace. That all started to change one night, when seemingly all at once, every nun in the convent woke up from the same dream. I experienced it too. It was a nightmare from hell. The stone walls of the church turned ice cold. All the candles were blown out, and then at the end of a shadowy corridor loomed an ominous man. It was simply the hollow shape of a man draped in cloth, with the scariest face ever. During our discussion, one of the younger sisters dubbed him as the Cloth Man, but the rest of us quickly decided not to attach any title to the strange entity we all witnessed. We hoped that the incident would be a passing occurrence, but our hopes were unfortunately always spoiled. Each night, one by one, this Cloth Man would isolate a nun in her sleep and hold her in that same harrowing nightmare until morning. When she woke up, she would find strange bruises all over her body. No one heard any thrashing during the night, so it seemed unlikely that we were striking our bed frames in our sleep. Eventually, we were all revisited by this nightmare, and things even bigger to stir outside of our bedchamber. Unusual sounds echoed through the church during the day. They seemed to come from nowhere, merely an echo with no clear beginning. Before long, it became clear that we had no other option but to report these happenings to Father Urban. We had not wanted to concern him with what most likely was not a serious issue, but we were at a loss. The only solution our priest offered was to pray more specifically that these disturbances would end. We followed his advice, though it did not solve anything. Inside the convent, the atmosphere was becoming quite uneasy. None of us in all of our years had ever experienced something so spiritually troubling, especially something that had no apparent cause. Nobody had passed. No arguments or grievances had stirred. Everyone had been perfectly happy and healthy. It had all manifested from thin air. As the days went on, the nightmares continued. Then came the night I will never forget. I don't believe I was dreaming, but something suddenly ripped me out of my sleep. What I saw when I opened my eyes will haunt me forever. All of my sisters were levitating above their beds. I couldn't fathom what was happening. I shut my eyes and covered my face, praying for my sisters to be saved, yet also wondering why I had not been affected. That's when I heard an ungodly voice calling to me.
If we say we have no sin, we deceive ourselves, and the truth is not in us.
Who's there? Oh my gosh! What the hell is going on? I need a priest now! Father, help!
It was not me.
The Father Urban?
Finally, the source of our nightmares was revealed. Our priest had been practicing witchcraft inside the church. He had tormented us and possessed us with the demonic spirit, forsaking his holy charge. I would not let his black magic churn any longer. I reported him immediately. Soon after, the men of our village burned him at the stake, and we began the arduous work of exorcising the evil from the souls of my sisters. Sadly, the demonic spirit that Father Urban beckoned from hell still lingers, as the men who carried out his righteous execution now claim. They are experiencing the same disturbances we suffered in our convent. I pray with every breath that things will someday go back to normal before Satan tarnished our lives. This story was inspired by the infamous Loudun possessions, also known as the Loudun Possessed Affair, which was a notorious witchcraft trial that took place in Loudun, Kingdom of France, in 1634. A convent of nuns said they had been visited and possessed by demons. Following an investigation by the Catholic Church, a local priest named Urbain Grandier was accused of summoning the evil spirits. He was eventually convicted of the crimes of sorcery and ultimately burned at the stake. The convent housed 16 young nuns, and most of them came from noble and rich families. It was during this period of turmoil that the group of nuns started seeing apparitions. These apparitions later devolved into convulsions and speaking in tongues. The bizarre case led to one of the most famous witch trials in the history of France. To be more specific, some of the incidents that occurred were ghost sightings of a recently deceased priest. A black orb was seen floating around the convent, skeletons wandering through the halls, the nuns being touched, punched, and pushed by invisible forces, having the urge to laugh uncontrollably, waking up to bloody wounds. Writings from the time claim that the nuns would bend over backwards and walk with their hands grabbed to their heels. They would reportedly whip their heads front to back, and their tongues would dart out of their mouths, black and covered in pimples. They spoke crudely and exposed themselves and encouraged lewd behavior from those around them. The nuns would also beat their chests and utter horrible and loud screams. The situation eventually got so out of hand that priests were called in to perform exorcisms. This was also done in public and attracted large crowds of tourists, some coming from as far as England. Through these exorcisms, the priests were able to ascertain the names of the demons responsible for inflicting terror on the nuns. The case contains similar themes to other witchcraft trials that occurred throughout Western Europe in the 17th century.